Gabriel Morales knew he had failed the final interview when Billionaire CEO Vivian Sloan closed his folder at exactly 4:18 and said, "You're answering the question I wish I'd asked, not the one I did." The question had been simple on paper. A newly acquired distribution center had an electrical fault, a shipment deadline, and no proof that the two were connected. Would he keep the building open? Gabe had said no. Not forever. Not even for the whole day. He had asked for 90 minutes, the maintenance logs, and the authority to clear one section of the building while an electrician tested the fault. The chief operating officer, Nathan Cole, had leaned back in his chair. That delay costs $800,000. Then somebody should have maintained the equipment before the expensive hour, Gabe had said. That was when the interview stopped being an interview and became a polite execution. Now 3 people sat across from him on the 42nd floor of Astron Logistics, with downtown Chicago spread behind them in clean blue glass. Nathan looked irritated. The hiring vice president looked embarrassed. Vivian Sloan looked interested in a way Gabe did not trust. He needed this job. By the end of the month, he needed either an employment contract or a signed offer on the small brick house where his 12-year-old daughter had finally stopped sleeping with moving boxes under her bed. And at 6:30 that evening, Maya was supposed to stand beside him at her school's living history night and tell a room full of parents why her father's medal had spent 11 years inside a kitchen drawer. Gabe looked at the clock again. 4:19. "You asked whether I would keep the building open," he said. "My answer is that I wouldn't make that decision without finding out what the fault means." Nathan's smile had no warmth in it. At this level, uncertainty is part of the job. So is knowing when uncertainty belongs to you and when you're making hourly workers carry it. The hiring vice president lowered his eyes to his notes. Vivian tapped one finger against the table. She was 53, silver beginning at both temples, and more restrained in person than she appeared in business magazines. She had built Astron from a regional routing company into a national logistics network worth more than $12 billion. Her public speeches used words like visibility, dignity, and accountability. Her executives used words like throughput. "Thank you for your candor, Mr. Morales," she said. There it was. The sentence people used when honesty had become inconvenient. Gabe stood, buttoned the one suit jacket he owned, and slipped his resume into the worn leather folder Maya had decorated years earlier with a small blue star on the inside flap. Something caught beneath the paper. He tugged. The folder tilted and a bronze disc in a scratched black case slid onto the table. The lid fell open. Gabe reached for it, but Vivian moved first. She did not touch the metal. She only read the engraved line beneath it. Ridgeway Distribution Center. October 18, 2015. The irritation left her face. "Where did you get that?" Nathan gave a short laugh. "Vivian, it's a medal. I can see that." Her eyes stayed on Gabe. "I asked where he got it. It was awarded to me." "For Ridgeway?" Gabe closed the case. "Yes." For the first time in the interview, Vivian looked away from him and toward Nathan. It lasted less than a second, but Gabe had spent most of his adult life noticing the gap between a machine's normal hum and the first sound of failure. That glance was a bad bearing. "Mr. Morales," she said, "please sit down." He did not. His phone vibrated in his pocket. One short buzz, then 2. "Maya's code for you are late enough that I am pretending not to care. I have somewhere I need to be. This will take 5 minutes. It never takes 5 minutes when someone with a view like this says it will." The hiring vice president made a sound that might have been a cough. Vivian almost smiled. "Tomorrow morning then," she said. 8 o'clock. "If this is another interview, you already have your answer." "It isn't." She glanced at the metal case in his hand. "And I'm beginning to think I don't have the answer at all." Gabe put the case back in the folder and left before needing the job could make the decision for him. He made it to Lincoln Middle School at 6:43, 13 minutes late and carrying the medal under one arm and a grocery store bouquet under the other. The bouquet had been intended as camouflage. It failed. Maya stood beside her display table in a green cardigan, explaining the difference between bravery and good timing to Mrs. Ng, her social studies teacher. Her dark curls were clipped back on one side with a silver barrette. On the other side they had escaped and were slowly taking over. The center of her display held an empty velvet square. When she saw him, she looked at the wall clock. She had inherited that from him, which felt unfair. 13 minutes, she said. The train stopped twice. That's transportation information. I was asking for apology information. I'm sorry. He held out the flowers. These looked more dignified at the store. They're carnations, Dad. Exactly. Dignified under pressure. She took them despite herself. Did you get it? He knew she meant the job. He also knew that Mrs. Ng was still standing close enough to hear. We'll talk at home. Maya's expression changed. Not dramatically. She simply set the flowers beneath the table, beside a cardboard box that held every object from their house she considered important enough to pack first. Full version? She asked. That was their rule. It had begun when she was 8 and Gabe had tried to soften the news that her mother was moving to Denver by calling it an extended work trip. Maya had learned the truth from a suitcase in the hallway. After that, she demanded full versions. Gabe had agreed because agreements were easier than admitting how often fear edited his sentences. Full version, he promised. He set the medal in the empty square. Beneath it, Maya had printed a card. Gabriel Morales, Carnegie Medal recipient. Saved 3 co-workers during the Ridgeway fire. Gabe read it twice. Where did you get fire? He asked. The article said there was an electrical fire after the platform fell. The article left some things out. Like what? Mrs. Ng looked politely at another display. Gabe should have answered. Instead, he straightened the card so its edges lined up with the velvet. We're supposed to present now, he said. Maya looked at his hand on the card. That wasn't the full version. Before he could respond, Mrs. Ng invited the next group of parents closer. Gabe stood beside his daughter while she explained that the Carnegie Medal was awarded to civilians who risked their lives to save others. She spoke clearly until someone asked why Gabe had gone back into the building 3 times. Because there were 3 people, Maya said. Gabe stared at the bronze face of the medal. There had been 4. The 4th person had not needed to be carried out. Simone Price had stayed at the exterior control panel with smoke moving over the roof and held the emergency cutoff in place after the relay failed. Without her, the conveyor motors would have kept feeding burning material into the collapsed section. Without her, Gabe would not have reached anybody. Her name was not on Maya's card. It was not in the newspaper article. It had not appeared in the medal citation. And Gabe had allowed that version to stand. On the drive home, Maya put the metal case between them in the cup holder. You said the interview went to 5. It ended early. Good early or bad early? Bad early. She turned toward the window. Oak Park slid past in neat lawns and porch lights, every house looking more permanent than theirs felt. Did you say the thing? She asked. What thing? The thing where you tell important people why their question is wrong. I answered honestly. So yes. Yes. She considered that. Can we still stay at my school? There were moments when a child did not ask a question so much as place something breakable in your hands. Gabe kept his eyes on the road. I'm working on it. That means you don't know. It means I'm working on it. Those are the same thing with better advertising. He almost smiled. Then he saw her backpack on the floor. A folded rental listing stuck out of the front pocket. It was for an apartment 12 miles west, outside her school district. Where did you get that? It was on the printer. He had printed it after midnight and hidden it beneath his tax returns. You went through my papers? It was in the tray. Maya. Full version, Dad. He tightened his hands on the steering wheel. If I don't have a job by the end of the month, we may have to sell the house. She nodded once. The absence of surprise hurt more than panic would have. Is that why my boxes are still in the basement? He asked. They're under my bed. Since when? Since you started saying working on it. At home, she carried the medal upstairs and closed her door with careful softness. Gabe stood in the kitchen listening to the old refrigerator cycle on. The house payment was 2 weeks late. His severance from Lakeshore Reliability had covered 3 months, his interview suit, and 1 emergency visit when Maya broke her wrist falling off a borrowed skateboard. It had not covered Pride, though Pride had remained strangely expensive. His phone showed an email from Asteron. The subject line said, Interview outcome. He did not need to open it. He did anyway. They had chosen to pursue other candidates. 30 seconds later, another message appeared. This one came from Vivian Sloane's office. Mr. Morales, 8 o'clock tomorrow. Bring the medal and bring whatever you were not asked about Ridgeway. Gabe read the line 3 times. Then he opened the kitchen drawer where he kept the paperwork that did not belong anywhere else. Beneath expired warranties and a takeout menu from a restaurant that had closed, there was a thin white envelope from Calder Freight Systems. It contained a settlement agreement, a termination notice, and a statement with Gabe's signature at the bottom. The statement was 6 pages long. The lie was 1 sentence. All safety systems at Ridgeway were functioning within documented tolerances before the unforeseen structural event. Gabe had not written it. He had signed beneath it. Upstairs, Maya moved one of the empty boxes across her bedroom floor. At 8 the next morning, Gabe returned to Astron's headquarters wearing the same suit and carrying a different folder. Vivian met him in a conference room 12 floors below the executive offices. No skyline. No hiring vice president. No Nathan Cole. On the table sat a red binder with Calder Freight Systems printed across the front. Gabe stopped in the doorway. Calder had owned Ridgeway. "You're buying them," he said. Vivian did not ask how he knew. Astron's proposed acquisition had been public for 2 months, but most reports focused on route capacity and market share, not the fact that Calder still operated Ridgeway and 17 facilities like it. "We sign next Friday," she said. "Assuming our board approves the final risk package." "And your interview question?" "Came from a live issue at Calder's Blue Island facility." Gabe set his folder on the table but did not sit. "You used an active safety problem as an interview exercise?" The details were anonymized. "The electricity probably doesn't care." Vivian took that without reacting. "Our due diligence report describes Ridgeway as an isolated structural failure followed by an electrical fire. It credits one employee with saving 3 people. The employee is identified only as G. Morales." "That's convenient." "For whom?" "Anyone who didn't want you asking why the structure failed." She opened the binder to a yellow tab. "The report says the state investigation found no intentional misconduct. That is not the same as finding that the equipment was safe." "I know the difference. Do the people preparing your board package?" Her jaw tightened. "Tell me what happened." Gabe sat then because anger standing up too easily became theater. Ridgeway had a raised conveyor platform over packing lines 3 and 4. For 6 weeks, the West supports were throwing vibration readings outside their normal range. Maintenance submitted repair requests. Operations deferred them because the holiday contracts had penalty clauses. Simone Price, an electrical technician, found that the emergency cutoff relay had been bypassed during a temporary repair. "Was that reported?" 3 times. "By you?" "Twice by Simone. Once by me." "Then why isn't she in the incident summary?" Gabe looked down at his folder. "Because the company decided the story needed one hero and no warning." Vivian waited. The platform came down at 9:14 on a Sunday night. Packaging ignited near the damaged panel. Simone held the manual cutoff outside. "I went under the east side and brought out 3 men. One had a broken pelvis. One couldn't see. The third kept trying to go back for his phone, which is the kind of stupid thing frightened people do when the thing on the phone is the last ordinary thing they remember." "And Calder gave you a medal?" "Carnegie did. Calder gave me a statement to sign." He slid the 6 pages across the table. Vivian read the sentence. Then she turned to the termination notice, dated 11 weeks after the accident. "Failure to maintain collaborative confidence," she read. "What does that mean?" "It means I refuse to certify the rebuilt platform." "But you signed this." "Yes." "Why?" He could have told her it was complicated. He could have told her Calder's lawyers had threatened him. Both were true and neither was the full version. "My daughter was 14 months old," he said. "My wife and I were already fighting. Our insurance ran through Calder. The agreement gave me 6 months of coverage and enough money to keep the mortgage current. They told me the sentence only described the safety systems, not the maintenance decisions. I knew that was nonsense. I signed anyway." "And Simone?" "Refused." "What happened to her?" "She was fired the same afternoon." Vivian closed the settlement agreement. "Why keep the medal?" "Because throwing away bronze doesn't restore someone's name. You could have corrected the record." "I tried after my insurance extension ended." The company's attorney sent the settlement back with my signature highlighted. The newspaper wouldn't revise a 10-month-old article without an official finding. Simone stopped returning my calls. "That sounds like an explanation." "It is." Gabe met her eyes. "It isn't an excuse." Vivian stood and walked to the window. From the lower floor, the view was mostly the wall of the building across the street. "Nathan says you're rigid," she said. "Nathan met me for 48 minutes. He also says bringing you into the Calder acquisition would create a conflict." "He knew about Ridgeway before yesterday?" Vivian did not answer directly. "He approved the due diligence team." There it was. Not proof. A change in the sound. She returned to the table and slid a 3-page contract toward him. "I want you to inspect Blue Island as an independent consultant. 3 days. You report directly to me and our board's risk chair. $25,000 whether you find a problem or not." It was more than Gabe had earned in his last 3 months of employment. Enough to catch up the mortgage. Enough to move his daughter's empty boxes back to the basement and pretend the foundation had never shifted. Why me? Because you recognized what was missing from a hypothetical problem before you knew it was real. You failed me for that. Nathan failed you. You were sitting beside him. Vivian's expression changed just slightly. Yes, she said. I was. The answer was better than denial. Was not enough. Gabe read the contract. The confidentiality clause was broad. The reporting language was not. This says Asteron owns my work product. That's standard. So was the sentence I signed at Calder. He took out a pen, crossed through 4 lines, and wrote that his findings could not be altered, summarized without his written approval, or withheld from the board risk committee. Add full access to workers without supervisors present, he said. And if I identify imminent danger, I can recommend a shutdown directly to the facility manager. Recommend? Order would be better. Vivian looked at the changes. Nathan will object. Then you don't need me. You need the answer from yesterday. She signed beside his revisions. Blue Island. 10 o'clock. Gabe signed last. On the way out he called Maya. She answered in a whisper from between classes. I didn't get the job, he said. But I got 3 days of consulting work. It pays enough to keep us in the house for now. There was a pause. For now, like real for now or grown up for now? Real for now. And the medal? It got me a second conversation. So it helped. Gabe looked back at the elevator doors. I don't know yet. Full version later? He thought of Simone's name, absent from the card on Maya's display. Full version, he said. This time the promise felt less like reassurance and more like a deadline. Blue Island occupied 62 acres between a rail spur and a neighborhood where the houses had been built before anyone thought a warehouse might need its own traffic light. The facility was less a building than a weather system. Trucks rolled in at one end, thousands of packages crossed 3 levels of belts and platforms, and trucks rolled out the other end with the company congratulating itself for making chaos look scheduled. Gabe arrived at 10 with a hard hat borrowed from Asteron and a visitor badge that identified him as acquisition support. Hal Brenner, Calder's facility manager, met him beneath a sign that read every employee has the power to stop unsafe work. Hal was a large man with careful hands and the tired politeness of someone who had been told to cooperate without being told why. Miss Sloan said you needed full access, he said. Mr. Cole said you needed an escort. Which instruction are you following? The one from the person buying the building. Good answer. Not necessarily. The other one approves my retention package. At least he was honest. The reported fault was on level 2, where a bank of sorting motors shared power with an older ventilation controller. At 2:17 the previous afternoon, 6 motors had dropped offline for 11 seconds. The system had reset itself. The official maintenance note called it a nuisance trip. Gabe disliked the phrase. Machines were rarely nuisances. They were witnesses with terrible communication skills. He asked for 6 months of electrical work orders. I gave him 3. The rest are being migrated, Hal said. Migrated where? Asteron's integration portal. Who controls the portal? Nathan Cole's transition office. The live dashboard showed all critical items in green. The paper binders in the maintenance cage did not. Gabe found 2 inspection sheets with identical readings copied 6 weeks apart. He found a thermal scan request marked complete even though the technician's notes said access denied during peak volume. He found 3 work orders for the same overheating junction cabinet, each opened as a new minor issue rather than one recurring major issue. That was an old trick. No single request aged long enough to turn red. At Ridgeway they had done the same thing with vibration alarms. By noon Hal had stopped explaining and started rubbing the back of his neck. You think we have a fire risk? He asked. I think I have people working below equipment that keeps asking for attention. That wasn't my question. It's the answer I can support right now. Hal nodded toward a woman in blue coveralls standing on the other side of the maintenance cage. She was holding a tablet and watching Gabe without pretending otherwise. Her hair had gone mostly gray at the front. There was a narrow scar along her jaw that the old photographs did not show. Gabe recognized her before she spoke. Still careful with nouns, Simone Price said. For 11 years, he had rehearsed what he would say if he saw her again. Most versions began with her name and ended with an apology good enough to alter history. The real version began with, I didn't know you worked here. That's because you stopped knowing where I worked. Hal looked between them. You two have met? At Ridgeway, Simone said. The name landed heavily enough that Hal glanced at Gabe's visitor badge again. Simone had not returned to Calder willingly. After 3 years of contract electrical work and 3 years at a school district, a union contractor had placed her at Blue Island to oversee energy control procedures. Calder could reject individual workers only for cause. Apparently refusing to help write the company's preferred history did not count as cause forever. Hal left them alone in a break room that smelled like coffee and warmed plastic. Simone remained standing. "Did you know they were using Ridgway in the acquisition report?" Gabe asked. "I knew they called me twice to sign a release. I told them both times they could use the same pen they used to erase me. Vivian Sloane didn't know your name. And now she does because the brave man told her?" "No. Because I told her who held the cutoff." Simone looked at him for a long moment. 11 years. I wrote to the paper. I wrote to the Metal Commission. I sent you. You sent letters to an apartment I left after Calder's lawyer called my landlord. I didn't know. That sentence has done a lot of work for you. Gabe let the words stay where she put them. On the wall behind Simone, a Calder poster showed 2 gloved hands beneath the words "Safe by Choice." Someone had taped a handwritten note beneath it, "Unless choice affects bonus." "Why are you here?" Simone asked. 3-day audit. For Asteron? For Sloan and the board's risk committee. Same people trying to close by Friday? Yes. Then you have 3 days to tell them exactly as much truth as they can afford. I changed the contract. You changed 4 lines in a contract written by people who own 400 pages of lawyers. You should have argued. The old Gabe would have explained every protection he had negotiated, because explanations were how he turned fear into a technical problem. Instead he said, "I signed the Ridgway statement because I was scared." Simone's face did not soften. "I had a baby," he continued. "My insurance ended if I refused. Danielle and I were barely speaking. I told myself I could sign, protect Maya, and correct the record later. Did it protect her?" The question reached further than Simone could have known. Gabe and Danielle had survived Ridgway. What they had not survived was the way he handled everything after it. He took the settlement without telling her the full terms. He started checking electrical outlets 3 times before bed. He changed jobs twice and claimed each move was planned. When Danielle asked whether they were safe, he gave her numbers instead of an answer. By the time Maya was 7, their marriage had become a series of decisions Gabe made privately for everyone's benefit. Danielle's job offer in Denver had not caused the divorce. It had only provided an address for it. "No," he said. "Not the way I thought." Simone pulled out a chair at last. "What did you find?" He told her about the repeating work orders and the incomplete thermal scan. She unlocked her tablet. "The motors aren't the beginning. Watch the ventilation pressure." She showed him a graph from the previous 4 Tuesdays. Shortly after the second shift began, air pressure dropped in zone 6, then recovered. The motor fault had occurred during the same window. "Dust collection?" Gabe asked. "They're reducing the fans during peak draw so the conveyor bank won't exceed the old transformer's capacity." "Who authorized it?" "Nobody in writing." "Then how do you know?" "Because I asked why the air changed and 3 people gave me the same sentence with different faces." Gabe looked back at the graph. Fine packaging dust plus overheated electrical equipment did not guarantee a fire. Safety was almost never about guarantees. It was about refusing to let several manageable problems meet in the same room. "Can you prove the fans were reduced deliberately?" "The building automation history would." "Hal says records are being migrated." "Then ask who decided to migrate the only records you need during the week you need them." By 3, Gabe had requested the automation history twice. At 3:12, an email from Astron's transition office informed him that the files were unavailable because of scheduled data validation. At 3:20 Vivian called. "Nathan tells me you're disrupting operations," she said. "I've asked for records." "You've also asked Hal to reduce volume in Zone 6. "Yes." "On what basis?" "Incomplete inspection, recurring heat events, and a ventilation pattern nobody wants to put in writing." "Is there imminent danger?" Gabe watched 2 temporary workers guide jammed boxes away from a belt with long fiberglass poles. Above them, the steel supports carried 10 years of dust in places the cleaning schedule claimed were spotless. "I can't establish that without the missing records." "Then you're asking me to interfere with the seller's operations based on an inference." "I'm asking why their records became unavailable after you hired me." Silence. "Be careful," Vivian said. "About the workers?" "About accusing people before you have evidence." "I didn't accuse anyone. I asked a question." "You know what the question implies." So do you. The line remained quiet for another 2 seconds. Finish the inspection, she said. Do not order a shutdown without calling me. My contract says I can make the recommendation directly. A recommendation isn't an order. You noticed that. I noticed it when you wrote it. She ended the call. At 4, Maya texted a photograph of 2 empty chairs in the school auditorium. Hers and his. Her orchestra seating audition began at 5:30. Gabe had promised to sit in the hallway while she waited, because she played better when she could complain to him immediately afterward. He checked the train schedule. If he left by 4:20 he could make it. At 4:14, Simone found a brown mark on the insulation around the Zone 6 junction cabinet. It was small. Smaller than a thumbprint. But the edge of the insulation had gone brittle, and the metal beneath it was warm enough that Gabe could feel the difference through his glove. Thermal camera, he said. Hal brought one from the maintenance cage. The temperature was elevated, not catastrophic. Gabe asked them to open the cabinet after isolating power. Hal refused without Calder corporate approval. He called his regional director. The regional director called Astron's transition office. The answer came back at 4:48. Inspection could proceed after the final outbound sort at 7. Maya's audition was in 42 minutes. Gabe called her. Hey, she said. Behind her, instruments squeaked and thumped as children warmed up. Are you parking? He looked at the cabinet. I'm still at the facility. The noise on her end seemed to grow louder. You said this was 3 days. It is. You said today you could leave at 4. Something came up. Something always comes up when people pay you. Maya. Mom's on video. She can listen after. I'll be there before you finish. You won't. I'm going to try. That isn't the full version. He lowered his voice. I found a piece of electrical equipment that may be unsafe. They won't let us open it until 7. Then come here until 7. The suggestion was perfectly reasonable to a 12-year-old and almost reasonable to him. I can't leave people working under it. But you can leave me waiting. He closed his eyes. That's not fair. I know. Her voice cracked on the last word, which made it worse. I have to go. She disconnected. Simone stood several feet away, pretending to study the camera. Go, she said. The cabinet stays energized. I can stand here. You don't have authority to stop the line. Neither do you, apparently. If anything happens. You think being the last person in the building is the same as being responsible. I am responsible. For everything? The question irritated him because it sounded like Danielle. Gabe looked at the workers below, then at the time. Reduce the volume by half. Post someone with the thermal camera. If the temperature rises 5 degrees, pull the disconnect and clear the zone. I'll be back by 7. Hal frowned. Calder Corporate didn't approve half volume. Then put in writing that you chose full production beside a heating cabinet you refused to inspect. Hal's frown lasted 3 seconds. Half volume. Gabe reached the school at 6:22, after Maya's audition had ended. She sat on the floor outside the auditorium with her violin case between her knees. Danielle's face filled the screen of the phone propped against the wall. She was still wearing her hospital identification badge in Denver. There he is, Danielle said. Maya did not look up. Gabe sat beside her. How did it go? I got second chair. That's great. There are 4 chairs. Second is still. She finally looked at him. Please don't make second sound like first with better advertising. Danielle's face went still on the screen. Gabe rubbed his palms together. His hands smelled faintly of hot insulation. I should have been here, he said. But. Maya asked. No but. That got her attention. I should have been here. I made the best decision I could at work and it still hurt you. Both things are true. Maya picked at a loose thread on the violin case. Did you fix it? Not yet. Then what did missing it do? Gabe had no technical answer for that. Danielle spoke quietly. Maya, give us a minute? It's my phone. Fair point. Gabe walked 10 feet away. He did. Danielle waited until Maya was out of earshot. You're doing it again. There was a real hazard. I believe you. Then what am I doing? Taking a choice that hurts and turning it into proof you had no choice. I left the site. After the audition. I got here as soon as I could. Danielle shook her head. That sentence ended our marriage, Gabe. Don't let it raise our daughter. He wanted to tell her that she had moved 800 miles away. That she attended orchestra auditions through a screen and still found room to judge the man sitting on the floor. The words arrived hot and ready. He did not say them. Danielle seemed to hear them anyway. I know what I left you carrying, she said. And I know leaving was my choice. I'm not asking you to pretend I did everything right. I'm asking you not to make Maya compete with every emergency in the world. What was I supposed to do? Trust somebody else for 2 hours? Gabe looked through the auditorium doors at Maya, who was tightening the clasps on her violin case even though they were already closed. Trusting someone else had once ended with his signature beneath a lie. That did not make Danielle wrong. He returned to Blue Island at 7:16. Zone 6 was empty. Hal and Simone waited beside the isolated cabinet. Inside, one bus connection had darkened from heat. The bolt holding it had been installed at the wrong torque and had slowly loosened under vibration. It could have lasted another week. It could have failed that night. Gabe photographed the damage, the bolt, and the date stamp. Then he asked Hal for the installation record. Hal opened the integration portal. The work order had been uploaded at 6:52 that evening. It claimed the cabinet had been inspected and properly torqued 3 months earlier. The technician's electronic signature belonged to a man who, according to Calder's own staffing records, had been on medical leave that entire week. There's your evidence, Simone said. Gabe stared at the timestamp. Someone had created the record after he asked to see it. At 7:21, his visitor badge stopped opening doors. Hal tried his own badge. The door opened immediately. That's probably a system error, he said. Simone looked at him. You should put that on the company flag. Gabe called Vivian. Her assistant answered and said Miss Sloan was in a board dinner. He sent photographs of the damaged connection, the false work order, and the access denial. Then he sent them to Amina West, the board risk chair named in his contract. At 7:36, Nathan Cole called. Your inspection is suspended, he said. By whom? By me. You're not named in my reporting line. I am Chief Operating Officer of the company paying you. The company paying me doesn't own this building yet. Exactly. You exceeded your authority by disrupting a seller's facility. I reduced one zone to half volume after finding evidence of overheating. We opened the cabinet after the shift and found a loose connection, which maintenance corrected. After someone created a false inspection record. You do not know that. The signature belongs to someone on medical leave. Nathan's voice became quieter. You were brought in to assess a technical event. Not to turn your personal history with Calder into an accusation against Asteron. Who disabled my badge? Go home, Mr. Morales. The line went dead. Gabe remained in the empty entrance corridor while second-shift workers passed through the turnstiles. Most did not look at him. One man glanced at the visitor badge hanging uselessly from Gabe's neck and said, That was fast. Outside, Simone handed Gabe a folded sheet of paper. It was a union safety complaint signed by 11 Blue Island workers. 4 had reported burning smells in Zone 6. 2 had reported headaches when the ventilation dropped. 1 had been moved to another shift after refusing to clear a jam beneath the junction cabinet. The complaint had been submitted 5 weeks earlier. Why didn't you show me this at noon? Gabe asked. I wanted to know who you were working for. And now? Now your badge doesn't work. That answers it? It answers part of it. He photographed every page and handed it back. Will the workers speak to the board? Will the board protect their jobs? I can't promise that. Then don't ask them to carry your proof for you. The words stung because they were fair. At Ridgeway, he had carried 3 people out and then expected Simone to carry the truth alone. What can I use? She pointed to the complaint number at the top. Ask Calder for the official response. If they tell you it doesn't exist, ask why their labor relations office acknowledged it in writing. At 8:13, as Gabe reached his car, Vivian called. Your access is restored for 7 tomorrow morning, she said. Nathan suspended me. Nathan does not control your contract. He controls your transition portal. Not anymore. Gabe unlocked the car but did not get in. Did he know the work order was false? He says it was a migration artifact. Created 29 minutes after we requested the cabinet inspection? I said that was his answer. I didn't say I believed it. Then delay the acquisition. The suggestion sat between them. You've been inside one facility for 1 day, Vivian said. And I found a heat-damaged connection, missing records, a false signature, and a safety complaint that isn't in your due diligence. You found a complaint? I found the number. Ask Calder for complaint BI641. Send me what you have. I already did. The board votes in 36 hours. Give me findings I can defend, not conclusions you reached 11 years ago. Ridgeway isn't making that cabinet hot. No. But it may be making you see intent where incompetence would explain the same facts. And the acquisition may be making you call intent incompetence because it closes on Friday. Neither of them spoke. 7 tomorrow, Vivian said finally. You'll have a new badge. At home, Maya had left dinner in the microwave with a note that said 3 minutes, stir at half. It was exactly the kind of instruction Gabe liked, which meant it was probably a joke. She was asleep. Her violin lay on the desk instead of in its case. Beside it, she had placed the medal and the display card from Living History Night. The words "saved 3 co-workers" had been crossed out in pencil. Underneath, Maya had written, "Ask Dad for the full version." Gabe stood in her doorway until she stirred. "You're doing the creepy parent-watching thing," she mumbled. "Sorry. Did you fix the dangerous thing?" "We found part of it." "Is everyone okay?" "Yes." Then missing the audition did something. The relief in her voice hurt in a new way. She was already learning to make his absence reasonable for him. "Maya, there was another person at Ridgeway," he said. She pushed herself upright. "Her name is Simone Price. She found the failed safety system before the accident. During the fire, she shut down the equipment so I could get the men out. The company left her name out of the story." "Why?" "Because she had warned them. If they admitted she helped save those men, people might ask why they ignored her." "Did you tell them to put her name back?" "I did later." Maya heard the word. Later than what? Gabe sat on the edge of the desk chair. Later than when it mattered most. He told her about the 6-page statement. He told her about the insurance and the mortgage. He told her that her mother had begged him not to sign anything until they found another lawyer, and that he had signed during his lunch break without telling her. He did not turn Danielle into the reason. He did not turn infant Maya into the reason. He said the simplest and ugliest thing. "I was afraid and I chose the version that paid me." Maya stared at the medal. "So you didn't save them?" "I did. But she did too." "Yes. And you got this." She touched the black case. "What did she get?" "Fired." Maya drew her knees up beneath the blanket. Her eyes filled, but her voice remained level. "My whole display was wrong. Not whole. But wrong where it counted. You stood there while I told everybody." "I know. You could have told me before." "I should have." She turned the metal case face down. "I don't want it in my room." Gabe picked it up. There was no anger in the gesture, no lesson he could give her. He had provided the full version and discovered that truth did not feel like forgiveness. Sometimes it only removed the padding. At 7 the next morning, Blue Island's system contained 6 months of records. Nathan's transition office had restored everything, including 3 files Gabe had not requested. Their quantity felt less like cooperation than a paper avalanche designed to bury a question. He ignored the reports with executive summaries and followed the complaint number. Calder's labor relations system showed BI-641 as resolved. The resolution stated that ventilation reductions were brief environmental fluctuations unrelated to intentional operating changes. The attached building control report covered 4 dates. Simone's graph covered 5. The missing Tuesday was the day the motor bank tripped. Gabe asked Hal for the raw controller log. Hal directed him to the local automation computer, which stored 90 days of commands even after central records were migrated. At 10:06 they found it. Every Tuesday, an operator account reduced the dust fans by 20% for 36 minutes. The command coincided with the heaviest outbound volume. The account belonged to a Calder regional engineer named Martin Say. But Martin had not logged into the building. The commands originated from Asteron's transition network. Hal sat down. "Asteron has been controlling our equipment?" "Someone with Asteron access has," Gabe said. He called Vivian. She arrived 43 minutes later with Amina West and 2 information security specialists. Nathan was not with them. They traced the commands to a transition analyst named Colin Rusk. Colin reported to Nathan's integration director. In a short video call, Colin admitted he had been asked to run capacity optimization tests before closing. He had copied settings from a newer Asteron facility without realizing Blue Island's transformer was undersized. "Who asked you?" Vivian said. Colin looked to his left, apparently at a lawyer. The integration model generated the recommendation. "Models do not request access credentials. Mr. Cole's office wanted proof Calder could meet our projected volume." "Did Mr. Cole tell you to lower the fans?" "Not in those words." "What words?" Colin swallowed. "He said, make the capacity case real before the board sees it." Vivian ended the call. Amina West removed her glasses. The board package says Blue Island sustained projected volume with no capital upgrades. Hal laughed once without humor. Because your people borrowed power from the air our people breathe. Vivian looked at the damaged cabinet, now tagged and de-energized. Shut Zone 6 down, she said. Hal did not move. Calder Corporate has to authorize. I'll call them. You're not the owner yet. No, Vivian looked at Gabe. Apparently we've been acting like one. The zone shut down at 11:20. 2 outbound contracts were delayed. Nothing caught fire. No dramatic rescue was required. That was what good safety work looked like on its best day. Inconvenience, annoyed phone calls, and everybody going home without understanding what had nearly become a story. By noon, Nathan was waiting for them at Astron headquarters. He did not deny the capacity tests. He argued that the integration team had exceeded his instruction and that Blue Island's local management should have flagged the ventilation change. He produced emails in which he had told staff to remain within approved safety parameters. You also told them to make the capacity case real, Vivian said. That is not an instruction to disable a safety system. They didn't disable it, Gabe said. They reduced it until the numbers worked. Nathan turned to him. You are a 3-day contractor with a documented grievance against the seller. The damaged connection doesn't know my employment history. No, but the board will. So will the press if this leaks. You signed a statement saying Ridgeway systems were functioning. Now, during the week of a multi-billion-dollar acquisition, you claim Calder hides safety problems. Which version are we supposed to believe? The one supported by the records you tried to keep from me. I suspended an unauthorized investigation. You disabled my badge after your analyst created a false inspection file. Nathan looked toward Vivian. You cannot let a man trying to cleanse his own history dictate the future of 9,000 Calder employees. It was a skilled argument because it contained a real risk. Delaying the acquisition could threaten financing. Calder had too much debt and too little cash. If the deal collapsed, facilities could close. Workers who had never touched a work order or changed a fan setting could lose their jobs. Vivian asked Amina to wait outside. She asked Gabe to do the same. As he reached the door, Nathan said, For what it's worth, I didn't fail your interview because of Ridgeway. I failed you because a person who sees every compromise as corruption cannot run an integrated network. Gabe turned. And a person who calls every warning a compromise shouldn't. The door closed between them. At 2, Vivian asked Gabe to meet her alone. She had removed her jacket and rolled her sleeves precisely twice. The acquisition binder lay open on the table beside a second folder labeled Employment. Nathan has been placed on leave, she said. The board is convening at 5. Are you delaying the vote? I'm amending the risk package. That wasn't my question. No. It was mine yesterday. For the first time she looked tired rather than controlled. If we delay beyond Friday, Calder's lenders can change the terms. They may demand facility closures before they extend credit. If we close, Astron controls the sites and can make repairs. Blue Island needs approximately $3 million in electrical and ventilation work. We can do it in 6 weeks. What happens during the 6 weeks? Reduced volume, temporary routing, additional monitoring. And the other facilities? We audit them after closing. So you still don't know what you're buying. I know more than I did 2 days ago. Because a medal fell out of a folder. Because you asked the right technical questions. She touched the employment folder. That is why I'm offering you the Director of Operational Integrity position. $210,000 a year, a signing bonus, full benefits on day 1, and direct access to the board risk committee for the first 18 months. Gabe did not open the folder. It was enough to save the house. Enough to replace the old car, rebuild the college account, and stop measuring groceries by what could survive until payday. It was also the role he had wanted, with more authority than he had requested. What do you need me to sign? He asked. Vivian's eyes shifted to the acquisition binder. A professional assessment that the known risks can be managed under Astron ownership. Before the other facilities are audited. Based on the remediation plan and your review of the available records. Available records, Gabe repeated. I need someone competent inside the system, Gabe. If you walk away and the deal closes, Nathan's replacement hires somebody who knows how to make green boxes. If you come in, you can build the program correctly. It was not hush money. That would have been easier to refuse. It was real authority, real money, and a chance to repair the very system that had once punished him. The cost was one sentence broad enough to let everyone proceed. Can I write that the risk is manageable only if closing is delayed until all high-volume sites receive independent electrical review? Then Calder misses the deadline. So the risk is manageable only if nobody says what management requires. That is not fair. No, Gabe said. It's expensive. Vivian pushed the employment folder closer. Take the evening. The board meets at 5, but I can hold the vote until 9. Why? Because I want you to say yes. He believed her. That made the offer more dangerous. When Gabe left the building, reporters were waiting near the revolving doors. Someone had sent them the Ridgeway settlement. The first headline reached his phone before he reached the train. Hero-turned-consultant challenges Calder deal after secret payout. The article quoted an unnamed source who said Gabe had concealed his financial settlement from Asteron during the hiring process. It included the sentence he had signed and a photograph of him receiving the medal. Simone's name did not appear once. By the time Gabe reached home, the article had been shared in Maya's class group chat. She sat at the kitchen table with the metal case closed in front of her. The employment folder was still under Gabe's arm. He had not realized he was holding it so tightly. "Did you take money for lying?" she asked. There was no safe version left. "Yes." "Are you taking money now?" "I haven't decided." He placed the offer on the table and explained what Vivian wanted him to sign. He told her the job could keep them in the house. He told her it could also give him the authority to repair the facilities after Asteron bought them. Then he told her what would remain unknown when he signed. Maya ran one finger along the folder's edge. Would the sentence be true? Partly. That's not what I asked. He looked at his daughter and heard his own interview answer coming back without the protective language. I couldn't prove the whole sentence yet. Then why would you put your name on it? Because if I'm inside the company, I may be able to fix what's wrong. Like last time? The question was not clever. It was not meant to guide an adult toward wisdom. It was a frightened child trying to understand whether the reason they might keep their bedroom was the same reason an article now called her father a liar. Gabe opened the employment folder. On the first page, his salary was printed in confident black numbers. I thought signing at Ridgeway would buy me time to make things right later, he said. Did it? No. Maya pushed the medal toward him. Then don't use this to do it again. He looked at the bronze disc through the open case. For years, he had treated it as evidence of the worst and best things he had done in the same week. Maya had just separated them. Going into the building had been courage. Signing the sentence had been fear. One did not cancel the other, and the medal did not get to decide which man he became next. Gabe called Simone. The settlement leaked, he said. I saw. I'm going to correct the public record. I want to name what you did at Ridgeway, but I won't use your name without permission. Why now? Because later is how I got here. She was quiet. Use my name, she said. But don't call me the real hero. That just makes the same story with a different face. What should I say? Say the system failed, for people acted, and the company made one of them useful. Gabe wrote it down. Then he called Vivian and told her he would not sign the assessment. Have you rejected the job? She asked. I've rejected the sentence. Without your assessment, Amina will recommend a delay. She should. Calder's lenders are already nervous because of the article. Bring her to Blue Island. For what? Your board package calls this a contained technical issue. Come meet the people it's contained around. The vote is in less than 4 hours. Then you finally have a deadline the workers didn't create. Vivian arrived at Blue Island at 6:15 with Amina West and Calder's interim chief financial officer. Nathan's seat in the vehicle was empty. There was no stage and no audience waiting to be impressed. Second-shift workers ate from vending machines in the cafeteria while Hal explained that Zone 6 would remain closed through the weekend. Simone sat beside 3 workers who had signed the union complaint. None wanted their name quoted publicly. All agreed to speak with Amina under the board's whistleblower policy. One described the smell that returned every Tuesday. Another showed 3 schedule changes after he reported it. A temporary worker explained that she had been told the ventilation noise dropped because new equipment was more efficient, even though no new equipment had been installed. Vivian listened without interrupting. When the workers finished, she asked Hal why he had closed the complaints. Because the regional office sent me a report that said the pressure changes were harmless, he said. Did you believe it? Hal looked at the table. I believed we were 6 weeks from new ownership, and I didn't want to be the manager who made this building look expensive. That was the real rule, spoken plainly at last. The sign near the entrance gave everyone the power to stop unsafe work. The compensation system gave them reasons not to use it. Gabe handed Amina a 2-page report. It documented the altered control settings, false inspection record, omitted complaint, damaged connection, and missing reviews at 5 other high-volume facilities. His conclusion was short. Known risks cannot be described as manageable until independent inspections establish their scope. Closing first would transfer control, but it would also transfer uncertainty to workers who have already been discouraged from reporting it. Attached was a 10-day inspection plan. Gabe had spent the train ride calling 3 independent electrical firms. 2 could begin the next morning. Astron could pay the inspections without owning Calder. If Calder refused access, that refusal would answer the board's question more clearly than another report. 10 days could cost us the financing terms, Vivian said. Yes. Calder may close a facility to preserve cash. Yes. You understand people could lose jobs even if the inspections find nothing else. Gabe looked around the cafeteria. I understand. That's why I wrote a plan instead of a speech. Amina read the final page twice. Will you sign this? I already did. At 8:40 the Astron board postponed the acquisition vote for 10 days. There was no applause. Howe received 3 angry calls from Calder executives. Vivian stepped into an empty training room to speak with lenders. Amina began arranging interviews. Simone went back to work because the rest of the building was still moving packages, and Truth had not made the night shift shorter. Gabe sat alone at a cafeteria table and emailed a statement to the reporter who had published the settlement. He confirmed that he had signed an inaccurate account after Ridgeway. He described the insurance and financial pressure without using them as an excuse. He named Simone's role with her permission. He did not accuse Calder of crimes he could not prove. He ended by saying that a medal recognized one action on one night. It did not make every later action honorable. Vivian read the statement on his phone. This could make you unemployable, she said. So could working for you based on the week I've had. She gave him a tired half-smile. Nathan's attorney says the leak did not come from him. Do you believe that? I believe the document came from our transition legal archive, and his office was one of 5 with access. We'll follow the evidence. What happens to him? He remains on leave. The capacity test and the badge suspension are enough for that. I'm not going to invent the rest because it would be convenient. It was the first thing she had said that sounded like she had learned something from him rather than about him. She placed the employment folder on the table. The offer remains without the assessment. Gabe looked at it, then toward Simone on the warehouse floor. I don't want to run your integrity program. Vivian's face hardened slightly. I want to build an independent one with Simone, he continued. Your board can hire us. We report findings you don't own, and we don't need a billionaire's permission to tell a worker what we found. That will cost more. It usually does when the answer can't be edited. Vivian looked through the glass wall at Zone 6. Send me a proposal. The 10-day delay became 12. Independent inspections found urgent electrical work at 3 Calder sites and incomplete records at 4 more. Calder's lenders extended the deadline after Astron placed funds in an escrow account dedicated to repairs. The purchase price was reduced. No facility closed, though 2 operated at lower volume for nearly a month. Nathan Cole was dismissed after the board concluded that he had concealed the capacity tests and interfered with the independent audit. Investigators could not prove he ordered the false work order, so Vivian did not claim he had. Colin Rusk kept his job after cooperating, lost access to operational controls, and spent several uncomfortable months helping redesign the approval system he had misused. Hal lost his retention bonus. He kept managing Blue Island under a safety review that no longer rewarded him for making complaints disappear. Vivian remained CEO. Astron's value fell for a quarter, and several magazines that had praised the acquisition called the delay evidence that she had lost her edge. She kept one of the covers in her office. Not as punishment, she told Gabe later. As calibration. Gabe and Simone named their firm Full Current Safety, which Maya said sounded like either electrical engineering or a very serious shampoo. Their first contract covered all 18 Calder facilities. Simone required that every final report include the names of workers whose observations led to findings. Gabe required a schedule that kept Thursday evenings free. The retainer caught up the mortgage. The house did not become larger, the refrigerator did not become quieter, and Gabe still checked the account before buying anything that did not come with a coupon. But the empty boxes moved out from under Maya's bed. 3 weeks after the acquisition closed, Lincoln Middle School held a second open house for projects selected by the teachers. Maya rebuilt her display. The medal sat in the center, but the old card was gone. On the left, she placed Gabe's photograph and a short description of the 3 rescues. On the right, she placed Simone's name beside a copy of the failed relay diagram and an explanation of the emergency cutoff. Across the top, Maya had written "Courage is what people do. The story is what power chooses to remember." "That's a little intense for 7th grade, Gabe said. Mrs. Ng said it was concise. Mrs. Ng frightens me. She should. Simone arrived 10 minutes later, still wearing her work boots. She stood in front of the display without speaking. "I can change anything that's wrong," Maya said. Simone pointed to the line that said she had held the cutoff for 11 minutes. "It was 9, she said. It only felt like 11. Maya corrected the number with a black pen. At 7, Gabe's phone buzzed. One of the inspection teams had found an abnormal heat reading at a facility in Indiana. For one sharp second, every old instinct returned. He pictured the drive, the equipment, the decisions someone might make without him. Then he called the team leader, confirmed that the affected section was isolated, and asked her to send the report in the morning. "You're not leaving?" Maya asked. "No. They handled it." She studied him, checking for the edited part. "Full version?" Gabe looked at the medal, at Simone's corrected 9 minutes, and at the daughter who had finally stopped preparing to leave before anyone told her they were going. "Full version," he said. "I wanted to go. I'm staying." Maya nodded and turned back to the next family approaching the display. This time, Gabe did not stand beside a story made cleaner for him. He stood beside the whole one.